It's Wednesday, September 10th, and today is the technical peak of the 2025 hurricane season. But it certainly doesn't feel like the peak of hurricane season. This is the quietest we have seen it out in the Atlantic on the technical peak of September 10th in years, actually. There is no expected tropical cyclone development for at least the next week, which is great news for us. It's just something that's kind of odd and definitely kind of rare. And on top of that oddity, we actually have Tropical Storm Kiko making a pass just to the north of the Hawaiian Islands. It's not going to bring any tropical storm impacts, but it could bring some strong rip currents and also some really big swells to the island, but that's about it. And on top of the calmness in the tropics, the Storm Prediction Center is also painting a pretty calm picture severe weather-wise in the US, although we still do have a really big area expecting to just see some general thunderstorms in the plains, northwest Rockies, and just in the west in general. However, I do think we could see some severe weather really in this upper plains convergence zone stretching all the way from eastern New Mexico all the way up through eastern Wyoming. And the HRRR agrees with it too. This is what our radar could look like come around the late afternoon to evening hours tomorrow. We could potentially see some organized storm clusters bringing some severe characteristics to parts of eastern New Mexico and eastern Colorado. And then moving up north, we'd see that this possibility really extends all the way up into eastern Wyoming, potentially even the far southeastern corner of Montana. These storms could bring some hail, potentially even being 1.5 to 2 inches in diameter, and some scattered 60 to 70 mile an hour gusts. And I actually think there is a non-zero tornado potential really down here in eastern Colorado and then far northeastern New Mexico. And then other areas which could see some organized clusters would be up here in the northern Rockies and also just the Pacific Northwest, really along our trough. And I show you our trough in a minute, you're going to notice how closely this really follows the shape of it as it pushes through. And these storms could potentially be organized. Will they be severe though? That likelihood is definitely looking a bit more slim, but definitely expect some strong thunderstorms if you're in any of the areas highlighted on this map. And then here's that big trough really pushing in through the western US. That's going to be the main culprit bringing all of our weather today. We're going to see that's bringing a lot of westerly flow across the upper plains convergence zone and also potentially some weak forcing to this region as well. And then we can see it's bringing some more forcing to this kind of arc area of storms that we were just talking about in the northern Rockies and also just Pacific Northwest. And of course, we can see that center of low pressure also potentially helping to initiate and organize those storms as well. And then we can actually see what we just saw where a lot of those storms moving kind of retrograding around this. That's another reason why those storms are doing that also. And with those storms out here in the Pacific Northwest, there's actually a small chance of seeing some flash flooding, although it's very slim. It's only a marginal risk, potentially 1 to 2 inches of rain. We could see the same thing down here in Florida, but there is actually a larger chance of flooding in the Miami region. We could potentially see 2 to 4 inches of rain down there, and that's highlighted by a slight risk of excessive rainfall. But what I want to point out is the storm environment in our upper plains convergence zone. This is a weather sounding particularly taken from eastern Colorado and far northeastern New Mexico. This is why I do think we could see potentially some large hail damaging winds and even a non-zero tornado threat. First things first, we definitely do have enough moisture and very much sufficient CAPE for these storms to really pop off. 4,000 CAPE and 60 dew point. That's definitely more than enough to see storms out here in this region. We also have quite a bit dry air aloft, a pretty high downdraft CAPE, and then also a pretty low relative humidity, all characteristics that you would see with a damaging wind event, and then also a pretty high low level lapse rate. That's also going to help with that as well. And then these storms are going to be organized, nearing that 40 knot threshold of organizing shear. Some weak wind veering to go along with that, although it's likely to be almost negligible. And for a hail threat, not only coupled with that strong bulk shear, which also means strong updrafts, we have quite a bit of CAPE up here near our freezing level and a very high mid-level lapse rate, 9.1 Celsius, decreasing per kilometer, potentially some 2 to 2.5 inch diameter hail. And then for our tornado threat, we have a 82.3 CAPE. So although our shear doesn't really look that great in the low levels and our cloud base is a bit high, these storms will be initiated and likely will be able to take advantage of that low level jet. So when that kicks in, and then also with the geography that we see up in the upper plains convergence zone, I'm actually going to say that there's a non-zero potential for tornadoes, although it's looking pretty close to zero. So that's something to worry about, just something to remember that tornadoes still could potentially be possible.